Decades ago, a generation of gardeners grew more food using kitchen scraps, rainwater, and techniques older than this country. These 20 clever off grid gardening tricks from the past cost them nothing, but an entire industry spent billions making sure they were erased from history. One is nearly 4,000 years old, but its results still leave modern gardeners stunned. Nature's clock. Today, many of us rely on frost date apps. Our ancestors had something more ingenious, a living calendar that never got the season wrong. They called it phenology, and it ran on observation rather than technology. Native Americans watched for a single lilac leaf to reach the size of a mouse's ear. That meant it was time to grow peas. Forsythia in full bloom gave the green light to grow onions. Oak leaves the size of a squirrel's ear meant it was corn time. These were not folk tales. They were so widespread that the USDA launched a nationwide lilac monitoring network in the late 1950s, tracking over 2,500 volunteer observation sites across 12 western states alone. Once those plants are in the ground, there is a planting arrangement used by Native Americans for at least 700 years. That means your plants feed each other. The garden that fed itself. One of the smartest farming systems in history was pushed aside by a method that needed more fertilizer, more chemicals, and more work. You see, for centuries, indigenous nations across North America relied on the Three Sisters planting method. This method turned three ordinary crops into a self-supporting team. Corn rose high above the mound, thus beans used it as a natural climbing frame. Beneath the surface, those beans helped replenish nitrogen in the soil. Then, the broad leaves of squash shaded the ground, slowed water loss, and crowded out weeds before they could spread. As you would think, the payoff was remarkable. A single planting produced staple foods while helping maintain soil health. Then came large-scale agriculture, which favored single crop fields because they simplified harvesting and distribution. Although that was deemed as advancement, something valuable was left behind. Up next, what if you could engineer the ground itself to feed your garden for years without any input at all? Hugelkultur, the mound that waters and feeds itself for years. German farmers in the Middle Ages had terrible soil. It was rocky, compacted, and basically dead. They knew they stood no chance with it and devised a mound culture known as hugelkultur. The idea was to dig a trench, stack rotting logs inside, pile compost over the top, and plant straight into the mound. That wood core behaves like a sponge. It pulls in rainwater and releases it slowly during dry stretches. The decomposition also generates heat, extending the growing season naturally. By year 3, the bed turns net positive on fertility. By year 4, earthworms have colonized the core completely, and the bed aerates itself. However, if you plan to use this trick, never use black walnut or black locust wood because both release compounds that actively kill plants. Instead, go for oak, apple, and maple. The next culture faced a bigger challenge. They needed farmland, yet most of what surrounded them was water. Chinampas, the Aztec floating gardens that fed a city. The Aztecs had a problem that should have stalled their growth. Their capital, Tenochtitlan, rose from the waters of Lake Texcoco, yet farmland remained scarce. So they used the only option at hand and built farms on that lake. These growing platforms, known as chinampas, were constructed from lake mud, sediment, vegetation, and other organic material. They used trees to anchor the edges and ensure the plots remained stable. There were narrow canals to separate each field and create routes for canoes while delivering a steady supply of water to crops. Crops rarely lacked water, and that contributed heavily in increasing yearly harvests. In fact, some estimates suggest several growing cycles each year, making chinampas among the most productive farming system ever recorded. The next breakthrough tackled a different challenge entirely. Not where to grow food, but how to water it with almost no effort. The 4,000-year-old automatic watering system. 4,000 years ago, farmers in North Africa and China solved drought without a single pipe, timer, or sensor. The tool was a simple clay pot commonly known as an alla. They filled it with water, buried it beside the plant, and left it there. The clay walls are porous enough to let water seep through, but only when the surrounding soil is dry. When the soil reaches adequate moisture, the flow stops on its own. That means the plant pulls exactly what it needs. According to the University of Arizona Cooperative Extension, ala irrigation saves between 60 and 70% of water compared to conventional watering. Research also confirms it outperforms drip irrigation in certain conditions. But, as is always the case, modernity spread and a $400 irrigation system replaced a $5 clay pot. Now, the next trick costs even less than that. In fact, it costs nothing, and your body makes it every single day. Urine as liquid fertilizer. Every day you pour fertilizer down the drain without even realizing it. How so, you ask? Well, for thousands of years, farmers across Europe, Asia, and the Americas treated human urine as a valuable resource for centuries. Urine contains nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, the same nutrients found in many commercial fertilizers today. The surprise is that modern research supports much of that old practice. A common recommendation is 1 part urine to 10 parts water applied near the base of plants rather than on leaves to reduce the risk of leaf burn. Looking at it wholly, this was never just about saving money. It was a way of closing a loop where nutrients leave the soil, pass through food, and return again. But these ancient generations did not stop at that. They went as far as helping plants build their own defense system from within. And that's what we look at next. Aspirin for immunity. That bottle of aspirin in your medicine cabinet was never made for plants, but it still found its way to farms. When disease strikes, many plants produce salicylic acid, a signaling compound that helps activate their defense systems. And scientists now view it as one of the key messengers behind plant immunity. Gardeners noticed something interesting long before the biology behind it was understood. They sometimes used a small amount of dissolved aspirin to help plants prepare for stress. Think of it like a fire drill to prepare plants for the real situation. This approach does not replace healthy soil or proper watering. Rather, it changes how the plant responds when trouble appears. The next strategy takes a different route. Instead of strengthening crops, it lures pests away from them altogether. Trap cropping. Most gardeners spend money fighting pests, but the old-timers had an entirely different strategy known as trap cropping. Here, they planted something pests love more than their vegetables right at the garden's edge. They swarmed the decoy and left food crops untouched. Nasturtiums release UV light that aphids find irresistible. As such, they will abandon your tomatoes for them completely. Blue Hubbard squash also produces a chemical compound up to 5 times more attractive to cucumber beetles than zucchini does. With this knowledge, ancient farmers planted such trap crops 1 to 2 weeks before their main crop. Pests found them first before they ever discovered what was actually growing on that farm. The next trick is even older, and it's been quietly eliminating one of the most stubborn fungal diseases in any garden for over 200 years using something from your refrigerator. Milk spray. The 200-year-old fungicide that works as well as the bottle. If left unchecked, powdery mildew can spread across a garden with surprising speed. When faced with this challenge, earlier generations often walked to the refrigerator instead of the garden center. For at least 2 centuries, gardeners have diluted milk with water and sprayed it on infected plants. The practice gained fresh attention in 1999 when Brazilian researcher Wagner Bettiol showed that milk controlled powdery mildew on zucchini as effectively as some conventional fungicides. In several trials, higher milk concentrations performed even better. A common mix is 1 part milk to 9 or 10 parts water sprayed in morning light as the light activates its antifungal effect. Milk protects what's above the soil, but the ancient civilizations who figured out how to rebuild what's beneath the soil left behind a legacy that archaeologists are still studying today. The secret is charcoal, and it's been hidden in the Amazon for 2,000 years. The soil that outlived a civilization. In the 1950s, archaeologists working deep in the Amazon found black fertile soil surrounded by the red exhausted earth that covers the rest of the basin. They named it Terra Preta, which means dark earth. Research confirmed the oldest deposits are up to 5,000 years old, created by indigenous peoples who deliberately mixed charcoal and organic waste into the ground. Charcoal is porous at a microscopic level, and that enables it to create permanent housing for the beneficial microorganisms that make soil productive. It locks nutrients in place instead of letting rain wash them away. It also improves drainage and prevents root rot simultaneously. However, if you decide to use this trick, never use barbecue charcoal. The fire-starting chemicals and salt in it will destroy plants on contact. Now, this trick might have taken decades to actualize, but did you know there was a living plant you can grow in a corner of your garden right now that does something even more immediate? Comfrey, the free fertilizer factory you plant once. Most fertilizers come in bags, but there is one that grows its own leaves. Comfrey looks ordinary above ground, yet its roots can reach several feet into the subsoil, accessing minerals that many vegetables never touch. Those nutrients accumulate in the foliage, making each harvest a resource. After cutting the leaves, place them in water for several weeks. During this period, these leaves break down into a dark liquid with a strong, unpleasant smell. However, what it lacks in smell, it makes up for in nutrient richness. It is rich in potassium, which is critical for the growth of tomatoes, peppers, squash, and other fruiting crops. It is so effective that the Royal Horticultural Society still recommends it today. Yet, even the best fertilizer faces a problem where rain can carry nutrients away. But there is an older solution that tackled that challenge by guiding water exactly where roots needed it most. Deep root watering. The fastest way to weaken a plant is often the same method used to keep it alive. Water the surface every day, and moisture rarely travels far below the ground. The roots notice, and instead of reaching deeper, they adapt by clustering near the top where heat strips moisture away first. Older growers tackled the problem from the opposite direction. They buried containers beside their crops and released water below the surface. A simple bottle with a few holes could do the job. The openings faced the root zone, ensuring moisture moved toward the area where growth was needed most. As a result, the roots followed the water downward. Plants developed deeper reserves and handled dry periods with far less stress. Yet, as strong roots solve one problem, harvest timing creates another. But earlier gardeners had an answer for that too. Succession planting. Imagine a situation where nothing happens in a garden for weeks. Suddenly, 30 heads of lettuce are ready at once. A few get eaten while the rest rot before they are even harvested. Earlier farmers could not afford that gamble. That meant crops were planted in waves rather than all at once. They did that by planting part of a crop on one day, and then planting the next section 2 or 3 weeks later. So, as one bed kept producing, the other was still maturing. Harvest stayed steady instead of arriving in a flood. With this approach, a garden can provide fresh food for months without overwhelming the gardener. However, commercial farming favored synchronized harvest because machinery and distribution worked best that way. Even solving this problem did not mean old-time gardeners were clear, as another challenge still remained. Between those planting cycles, bare soil was exposed, but they found a way to turn that empty space into an asset. Cover crops and green manure. The off-season soil rebuilder. Winter is when gardens go quiet. But for the soil, that's when the real damage happens. Bare ground erodes, nitrogen bleeds out, weeds colonize the surface, microbial life collapses, and by spring, you are planting into a deficit before a single seed is buried. Chinese farmers documented the fix in the 3rd century BCE by growing legumes through the off-season, then burying them before planting season. Roman writer Cato recorded the same practice in 160 BCE, naming lupin and vetch as the top choices ahead of cereal crops. Legumes like clover, vetch, and field peas pull nitrogen from the atmosphere and lock it directly into the soil. And according to the research, they can return up to 200 pounds of nitrogen per acre, enough to eliminate synthetic fertilizer entirely. Then, cheap synthetic nitrogen arrived in the 1940s and the practice vanished almost overnight. Today, we mostly look at the night sky when gazing at the stars, but for ancient generations, that same sky acted as a planting calendar. The moon that guided harvest. Babylon, Egypt, and indigenous nations all tracked the moon to plan planting cycles. Even Benjamin Franklin printed lunar calendars for colonial growers, a practice still echoed in the old farmer's almanac today. As the moon waxes, moisture in soil appears to rise near the surface. Therefore, seeds often absorb more water during germination. As it wanes, moisture shifts downward, favoring root growth. That theory gained long-term attention through German researcher Maria Thun. Over decades of trials, she planted identical crops on different lunar phases and recorded changes in germination and yield patterns. And although other controlled studies often show mixed results, the consistency of practice across unrelated cultures sustains its credibility to date. Up next, the story shifts underground, where soil itself changes everything above it. The no-dig method. The earliest recorded no-till farming dates to 8000 BCE, where farmers used planting sticks to open just enough soil for a seed. They then layered compost on the surface and let the earthworms pull it down. Every time a tiller runs through a garden bed, it shreds the mycorrhizal fungal network underground, the very system through which plants share water, nutrients, and chemical distress signals with each other. And research has shown that these mycorrhizae populations might not recover even after 2 or 3 years. Tilling also drags dormant weed seeds up to the surface, where light triggers them to sprout. Now, protecting what grows on top of that soil is a different challenge entirely, one which the answers has been in your recycling bin all morning. Newspaper mulch. In 1939, Britain's food imports collapsed almost overnight. The government was forced to launch the Dig for Victory campaign and told every family to turn their lawn into a vegetable plot. One of their official recommendations was newspaper mulch. 4 to 5 sheets laid wet between vegetable rows blocked sunlight completely, suffocating weeds before they ever sprout. Moisture also stayed locked in throughout dry spells. By season's end, the paper was fully decomposed, leaving the soil beneath it richer than ever before. By the 1980s, garden centers replaced this with plastic landscape fabric. It does nothing for soil biology, never breaks down, and ends up in landfills for centuries. Moving on, there is a completely free material most people pay to have hauled away that transforms into rich compost in a single season. Wood chip paths, the fertilizer factory you walk on every day. Tree trimming crews have a problem every day. Mountains of wood chips with nowhere to go. Call your local arborist and ask. Chances are they will deliver a truckload to your driveway for free. Then, spread those chips along your garden paths. They suppress weeds, cushion the soil, and keep everything tidy. The part almost everyone misses comes 1 to 2 seasons later. Under weather and foot traffic, those chips break down into dark, crumbly, nutrient-dense organic matter. And that's the same material garden centers sell at a high markup. Yet, the moment most plants die in any garden is not drought or disease. It's transplanting. The fix is a geometry trick older than plastic trays. Slanted cups and egg cartons. Transplanting kills more seedlings than you might know, and the culprit is almost always the container. Straight-walled plastic pots trap root balls completely. Getting a seedling out without snapping roots requires prying, shaking, or stabbing with a finger, all of which trigger transplant shock severe enough to set a plant back weeks or finish it off entirely. However, ancient gardeners found a way around this. They used cups shaped like truncated cones, which let the entire root ball slide out intact with a gentle squeeze. Today, a paper egg carton does the work. Each cell is naturally tapered. You just plant the whole thing directly in the ground, and the cardboard breaks down within weeks, feeding the soil as it goes. But what about a seed that never even gets to the transplant stage? The board germination trick. Seeds fail fast when exposed. Heat dries their surface, birds pick them clean, and rain breaks soil structure. Early growers address this with a flat board placed directly on fresh seed beds. The board traps moisture under the surface as soil temperature stays stable, ensuring germination begins in a controlled space. Permaculture researcher Bill Mollison noted this as a low-input method for seed success. However, when using this trick, ensure you remove the board once the first shoots appear. Leaving it longer means it stays in the dark for longer, and that's the perfect environment for pests to gather and breed. The effect is simple: higher germination without irrigation systems or equipment. Which trick surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments section below, and remember to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.